This is just my brain having to process everything I'm learning. Hilarious. Started out this morning very simply wanting to work on how and what the vagal nervous system is and how I can get out of my own survival mode. And it just snowballed into an interesting, very interesting study. I went into the brain. I said, what exactly is the brain? Where does the vagal nerve? I'm like, what is this? So let's study the brain. So I went into the brain. The brain has so many wildly different parts to it. A lot of it around motion and memory, not surprising. Things like movement balance, processing audio, visual, language processors, time, space, so you know where you're physically located in the space that you're physically in, obviously, and about how long you've been there. All of these things that are also very entertaining because of my ADHD study to see where these are the areas that are definitely impacted by having ADHD. 100%. That prefrontal cortex about being able to hold focus, no. Do I hold it? No, I don't hold it. Not even remotely close. So there's a whole lot of stuff up here around motion, and I was like, well, this is really interesting. What does it look like when you're first born? So, like, how do these develop depending on the environment that you're growing up in? So, great example is like, if you have, your hypothalamus is a great way to put it. Like, so your hypothalamus is the part of your brain that manages hunger, thirst, your stress responses, your circadian rhythm is managed in there. So much stuff is in there. So we know hypothalamus has to come out really early at birth, like really early, because obviously this is how you know you're hungry when you first come out. So we know it's there. This is good. But how do other places like the hippocampus and the amygdala, these kind of areas are more like a hippocampus is your short to long-term memory. Where does that sit? Because none of us remember anything from when we were babies. Otherwise, you know, the hippocampus would probably be there and more developed, like our thalamus was, the hypothalamus. So I know hippocampus, not as developed. Same thing with like the amygdala. That's your emotion regulation. That's the one that really obviously does develop over time because you have kids who are learning what their emotions are and how to control them and what they mean. Because hey, guess what? Your hypothalamus and your amygdala are pretty good at communicating, so that when you're hungry, your hypothalamus, not getting what it wants, is going to go talk to the amygdala and say, hey, go act out. Go act up. Do this. Because this is what we need. So this is your brain's means of being able to communicate with you. So cool, right? But again, as a baby, none of this stuff is around. So like, what are we born with? Like, there's not nothing up there, obviously, but there's clearly not a whole lot developed. So this gets into the cool stuff. Your brain at 8 weeks is pretty much developed. You have got your two hemispheres, you've got your cerebellum, you've got your spinal column, you've got all of the major stuff is developing, right? It's all starting to go into place. 8 weeks. That's pretty good. Nothing is nailed down though, right? So again, remember that amygdala, all of those pieces haven't really been created. That happens between birth and 2 years is when all of those pieces start to really ramp up. There's a whole lot in there too. Trust me, it's not like all over. So you're looking at being born with so your brain is, again, a collection of neurons. And there's all of these neural network pathways so that, like I had said, your hippocampus, who says, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm still thirsty, let's go bump the amygdala and tell it to send out an emotion so that it gets what we need. That kind of stuff is what develops. And those communications are done through your synapses, through these nerve endings. So they all communicate back and forth, right? And it's all being built. So when you're born, there are very, very, very few of them. But through exposure to your environment, and this is again why humans are so much more developed than other species, because we're born so young, we learn to put all of these pieces of our brain together based on the environment we're born into. So you're born into an environment and your brain is immediately saying, ooh, this is a whole lot of more experiences. There's a lot going on here. We need to start mapping it. Like, oh my God, I can move my fingers. Oh my God, I have a mouth. It's cold. Why is it suddenly cold? Like, all of these things are now being inundated into your brain, and your brain, being the amazing learning mechanism that it is creating synapses for this. So it's putting nerve endings out there. It's putting out nerves out there and setting up synapses, and all of these junctions are happening. And of course, it's the more experiences you, and this is the big note that I've got, is the more types of experiences build where the pathways go. So the more types, however, the frequency of the experiences builds the strength of those pathways. So between birth and 2 years old, humans, between birth and 2 years are building over 700 synapses per second. Let that sink in. That's 700 synapses a second, average. Because obviously, like, and even when you're asleep, it's not like it's stopping. But for all of, and again, each unique type of experience is going to build a cluster of synapses around it. Your brain's going to say, oh, here's an experience. I'm going to build new synapses around how to deal with this experience. How do we work with this experience? This new touch, this new texture, this new movement, this new sound, this new sight, this new thing, all of these things, right? The ones that happen consistently are the ones that are going to build stronger connections. For example, putting a jacket on makes you warmer. Guess what? Your brain's going to keep that. That synapse is going to be nice and strong. It's going to be good. If you've only once been like some random encounter, I'm going to use, if you only once get stung by a bee, your brain is never gonna, like, it's not gonna keep the memory of that pain. It's not gonna, like, remember it. When it happens again, it's gonna feel like it's never happened before. So, and that's that kind of thing where your brain's like, I'm not gonna keep this. This is like a tiny piece of information, so it's not a well-worn path. But again, putting on a jacket makes you warm, that's a well-worn path, because you do that constantly. So, here's this thing that happens though. You cannot keep all of those joints, all of those communications, all of those junctions between your synapses. That is way too much resource waste, and that's like long distance communication. It's like skipping freeways and doing the back roads in order to get to a message when there's a freeway right there. No traffic. Take the freeway. Don't take the back road. So here's the cool thing. When you hit preteen, teen, your brain goes through what is called pruning. So it takes all of the experiences and all of the frequency of those experiences and all of the synapses and all of those junctions, and it starts cleaning it up after itself. So, which is interesting because at this point, the thing that really does that is your pituitary gland. So your pituitary gland is the one that says, hey, it's time to start developing into a sexually active adult. And it takes years to do. It takes like 10 years. But your pituitary gland is the one that kicks this off. So somewhere in here, when your pituitary gland kicks off the hormones to the rest of the body, your brain is also getting the signal to clean up all of that garbage you've created for the past like 10 to 11, 12 years. And let's start cleaning that up. Let's get the pathways that are the strongest. Let's invest in those, and let's clean up the rest of the nonsense that's out there. Get rid of the cobwebs. Here's the thing. If you have ADHD, your synaptic pruning doesn't happen so well. It just doesn't do it as well as somebody without ADHD. And this is only very, very recent that we've determined this. Heck, most of the stuff is in the past like 5 to 10 years, man. Like, we're getting there. We're getting there. So ADHD doesn't prune so well, right? ADHD is a lack of dopamine in the system. Your brain doesn't really manage the dopamine at all. Like, you just have low volumes of overall dopamine in the brain, which, by the way, is managed by several different parts of the brain. There's some of the brainstem, you name it. There's tons, all right? So I don't have a clue which one specifically, but it's probably all of it. Has just developed to not give you that much. So not too much dopamine means you're not going to be pruning as much. Here's the other thing. For individual children born and raised in a chaotic environment, they must have some wonky, and I say wonky, some very unique, I'm going to put unique synapse creation, because they had a high stress environment growing up. They had, for the most part, to subdue their amygdala. So while their hypothalamus is saying, you're really hungry, you're really hungry, you're really hungry, your brain has learned that it doesn't matter if your body is hungry and your amygdala is going crazy and making you whatever feelings you are, your environment is not safe enough to be able to show those emotions, to be able to resolve the hungry. So these two areas of your brain are being actively suppressed by your synapses being developed in order to not function, essentially. Or at least be muted, like have that barrier is what I've started calling it. There's like a wall in there, and I can kind of tell, like, if I can get through this somehow. So when you're there and you're chaotic and you're still in that chaotic environment as a preteen teen, because assuming in a lot of situations it doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. Let's face it, folks. It just doesn't. It doesn't really get better. You just get bigger is the problem. And then you have hormones on top of it, which is so much fun. Let me tell you, your brain is supposed to be pruning. However, your brain is also not built the same way. And it's still technically actively in a survival scenario. It is still in a chaotic environment. It is not going to go about spending any time pruning when it knows that it might need that junction later. As weak as that junction might be, it's still going to be like, I don't have time for that. I have more emergencies to deal with. I still have chaos. I still have survival going on. So this is your survival brain. Your survival brain and ADHD brain. I'm laying bets that your ADHD brain, just like a survival brain, does not prune during the teenage years. Not as much. I'm not saying it doesn't in general, but it just doesn't do as thorough a job. I suspect too much of that chaos, too much of that unpredictability, too much of the different types of experiences and frequency of those experiences causes the pruning to be skipped, sort of, or lessened. So hold on, it gets more. I know this is like a 15-minute rant of me going down a rabbit hole, but it's a rabbit hole. Here's further down the rabbit hole if you want to get there. You have the instance of children who are raised in chaotic environments, and even ADHD children. But a child who is raised in chaotic environments is going to have very different brain structures at this point, because the different synapses and the different joints and the different, all of this is going to build based on a stressful environment. It's not a calm, relaxing environment where you can see butterflies. This is a stressful reaction where you have to deal with the fact that you're cold and there's nobody helping you to resolve this fact that you're cold. You have to figure it out on your own, right? So that's how your brain is functioning. It's being built this way. So you hit teenage years, pituitary gland kicks in, hormones start going out, but that pruning is not going to happen because, again, your experiences are still here and they're still very frequent. Here's an interesting note, though. Say, for example, you're a normal kid and you have been creating all of your synapses and all of your junctions just like a normal brain, right? That we've got two different paths here that are coming along. And the two different paths are coming along, and you hit your preteen teen years, and suddenly all your world changes. And I'm going to use the example that millennials always use, which is Columbine, 9/11, War on Terror, housing market crash, all of these things that happen during our pruning years. Children who were on a normal trajectory, children who are on a chaotic trajectory, are not going to prune. The brain's in survival mode. It doesn't, like, it's not going to say, okay, let's just like start rebuilding synapses. It's not going to do that, but it's also now using junctions, at least in the normal brain growth. It's now using junctions that it's never used before because this is a new experience and it's happening at a much more frequent rate. Their chaos is increased. Those junctions are changing. Their whole brain is being rewired. Meanwhile, the poor chaotic brain is like, this is normal. Oh, good, new junctions to be used. I guess I'm glad I didn't prune those. So my theory here, and this again is based entirely on the fact that a stressed out brain is not going to prune, an ADHD brain is not going to prune all of these things as a teenage, goes into the fact that the millennial generation had so much chaos happen in the preteen teen eras that it threw their brains out of pruning. And now I wonder if millennial brains have significantly more neural network junctions than, or synaptic junctions than other generations. Which would be cool to know. We only have like a handful of generations that we can really collect sample sets from, because we just recently determined this as science, so we really only have like maybe, like, we got plenty of boomer, but like we might have some silent generation left over, plenty of millennial, Gen X, Gen Z, like the younger ones, yes. But it's that preteen teen era where that brain starts pruning that I'm wondering. And now for the rabbit hole of, I don't need a rabbit hole, I know what happens when you don't prune. It's called ADHD. No pruning, full chaos. It's difficult. Struggle bus to just keep it there. So that was my rabbit hole today. Enjoy.